you said, no, the more that people are actually aware of what Toledo has going, then I think, you know, the better off we'll be, so.
Okay. Mic check, mic check. Comfortable?
As comfortable as I'm gonna get.
All right, well, I'll take it. Go ahead and say and spell your name for me.
Sure, it's Mel Stachura, and it's Melstachura.
And what's your title?
I'm a sergeant with the Toledo Police Gang Task Force.
Okay, so first of all, let's get into your background just a little bit. So tell me again, how long have you been in the gang task force?
I was a member of the Gang Task Force since 2016. I was first a detective, I got promoted, and then came back to the unit in 2017 as a sergeant.
Okay, so you've been in here for a while. You have a pretty good understanding of the gangs in Toledo?
I've been doing this for a while, and then the detectives that we have a lot of seasoned officers and detectives that we all collaborate and have a good idea of what's going on.
So how many major gangs are in Toledo right now?
Major gangs, I mean, we do have Bloods, Crips, Gangster Disciples, also known as the Folks. We have those, and there's several different sets. When we talk about sets, I mean, that's pretty much what we know as our active gangs. So we probably in the neighborhood of about maybe anywhere between 30 to 37 different smaller groups. That's what's operating within the city of Toledo at any given time.
How many gang members total do you think there are?
Now, that's always a good question because, remember, a lot of our gang members go to prison. They get murdered. Some of them are very youthful, and family move them out of town, so they're no longer active with our gang. But there could be anywhere, there's going to be probably a couple hundred, and when I say a couple hundred, maybe 100 or 200 really active gang members. Exact numbers can vary, though, like I say, day to day.
So which gang do you think is the biggest and the most popular here?
I mean, the biggest gang, as far as it goes, because it's one locality for the most part, would be our Southside Gangster Disciples, generally because they're all in one group of neighborhoods in the South End. A lot of them are family, friends, they've grown up together, they're generational. So you have that, they would be one of them, but we have our ex-Black Crips would be another major gang that has problems. Some of our Smith Park Mafia. These are some of our bigger, more active gangs right now.
And then what would you say is their biggest source of income or biggest sources of income? What is their big thing? Is it drugs? Is it racketeering? Is it prostitution? What is it?
For the most part, the tried and true method is drug trafficking. Second to that would be probably burglaries, B&Es, robberies, especially for firearms. We know a lot of these gangs proliferate through sales of drugs, which, I mean, that's the fast, easy money. But the bigger thing is to get guns, because that's the big problem right now with the city of Toledo is youth getting guns, and they get them quickly.
Yeah, so let's talk about the homicides that we've been seeing. Obviously, you can't comment on anything that's being actively
Correct.
investigated, but just generally, when we're seeing this violence retaliation cycle, what's inciting that? Do you have any insight into that?
For the most part, there's a multitude of reasons of why people are shooting people. It can be as minimal as you got dusty shoes, your shoes are dirty, that little comment, to somebody messing with somebody's significant other or messing with family members. This is in rap videos. A lot of our youthful gang members make music, and it's drill rap. And when drill rap is done, it's basically talking about how you shoot the ops or the opposition. And some of them try to live that type of lifestyle, and that's what we're seeing, especially 2020 and 2021. I mean, the homicide numbers jumped drastically, and that's kids at home with nothing to do. The bigger problem that we're seeing within the city of Toledo, and it's nationwide too, hybrid gangs. So where you have Blood, Crips, Gangster Disciples, I hang out with blue, I hang out with red, I hang out with black. Those colors are no longer it. You see Crips hanging out with Bloods, hanging out with Southside Gangster Disciples, in these small groups are friends one day, the next day they're shooting at each other. And these hybrid gangs don't necessarily claim territory because some of the members are different, part of bigger gangs, but they operate in smaller factions. Some of them are doing hired hits. Some get paid out to do things like that. Some it's just emotion and spur of the moment. We don't like them, we see them, we shoot them on sight.
Do they acknowledge that this is a problem? Like, have you talked to gang members where they say, hey, this is not the right way for us to be settling our differences, or do they not care?
The older folks, the older gang members all agree, and it's kind of funny, but I guess it's generational because when I first came on, the guys that are now dads and raising their children, we were arresting, and I talked to their parents, and now I'm talking to, I mean, I'm going through generations, and the same thing comes down to the younger folks act out and they don't respect the older ones. And we do see that true. When we talk to some of our, what we considered, original gangster OG members, they'll even tell you, like, these younger kids don't care. Before there was respect. If you were an older gang member, you were respected. That's what it was, just a little bit of respect. Now, there's no respect. You can be a gang member that's 14, 15, and you're going to make a name for yourself because you're shooting this known person.
So, I mean, I feel like violence has been in rap music for a long time. So what are the deeper cultural trends that are leading to this just lack of respect and this lack of respect for life? Like, what is changing the gangs right now?
Really, what I see now is I mean, parenting is the biggest thing. We do have concerned parents, and they do reach out to us. I think that there should be more because it's going to be recognized at home. I mean, we're talking 10, 11 years old carrying guns. I'm sure that's seen. Now, Toledo isn't any exception to anything. 5% of our people and population are committing 95% of the crime. And that's the same now as it was when I first started. But it starts at home. And some parents, instead of disciplining their kid or trying to ask, like, hey, they're acting out, just kind of go with it or embolden it. So when we stop them, it's no longer, hey, you got stopped. What did you do to get the police to stop you? Now it's, why are you picking on my kid? And when we tell them, hey, we caught him with a gun, they were shooting at somebody. I mean, again, the accountability with some parents is just, they want to be more friendly with their kids as opposed to a parent. Secondly, I know there's people in the community that want to speak out, and people do. We really would like the community to reach out to us when they see it, because you're going to see it within the neighborhood. We've had several people in different neighborhoods in the city of Toledo been great to us. They call the moment they see some of these signals where it's, people are starting to get loud, you hear talk of weapons, and they'll call us and reach out to us, and we go and put an end to it. But like I said, it starts with, we all got to help out as far as teamwork to end this. It's nothing different 20 years ago than now, other than, parents are more okay with children emulating that type of lifestyle.
So how bad are guns on the street right now? Like, how much of an epidemic has this become?
The gun epidemic is now, we're getting the same amount of guns that we've gotten in the past, at least that's the way I see it. The problem that we now run into is that we're getting more high-powered, high-capacity magazine weapons. And you'd be amazed that we're pulling these off of 12-year-olds. I can tell you we got 7 guns on a stop once, and this was a call from a citizen, so that was a great teamwork between community and us. 6 kids had 7 guns. One was an AK pistol, one was an AK rifle, one was an SKS, and then 2 AR-15s. So out of 7 guns, 6 of them were high-powered rifles, and these were carried by 12-year-olds.
Where are these weapons coming from?
Burglaries. They're coming from straw purchases. Straw purchases being that I'm legal to own a firearm, you aren't. So you're, hey, I can purchase a firearm for you. We go to the store, or you tell me what you want, I buy it in advance, and you just give me the money for the gun. So they don't see that somebody shouldn't have a weapon, but these purchases are being made. Like I said, street deals, when people burglarize, houses. Towers Armory, for instance, got burglarized. You know, that's where people can get guns. And that's what we're seeing.
What is your assessment of current gang-related crime right now? How would you say it compares to previous years and previous decades?
I would say as far as what it takes credit for as far as the amount of crime committed in the city of Toledo per year, it's pretty much same year in and year out. The thing that we're now noticing is this trend of youthfulness, where before we would generally catch 14, 15, 16-year-olds with guns. Now we're seeing 10, 11, 12, and it's a very common theme. The other note to put out there is that we're coming on scenes and more victims are below 15 years old.
Yeah.
And that's a sad reality, and that takes a toll on the community, on officers. And that's the big thing. These young shooters don't care who they're shooting. They shoot into crowds, into groups, and a lot more innocent victims are getting hit from these incidents. Now, do we have a ton of innocent victims hit from crimes, like these type of crimes? No, but still one's too many. But that's what we're seeing. That would be the trend, is the youthfulness, the high-powered weapons, the high magazine, high-capacity magazines. We're seeing that on youthful offenders more and more.
Yeah, and just kind of reiterate for me, like, what is that doing psychologically, though, when we see, first of all, like, literally, like, little kids killing each other, but then additionally when we see, like, the young victims, like the little kids that get caught in the crossfire.
Absolutely.
Not only what does that do for you guys, but what does that do for the surrounding communities that are living in it?
It's traumatizing for all that experience it. So when I can say I can empathize with some of these people who say, hey, we've seen a lot of trauma growing up, I can understand and empathize with that. On this job, you see things like that, and we're all human. We're not robots. We take it home with us. Some deal with it better than others. But it takes a toll, and if it takes a toll on us, and we're supposed to be, be able to keep a calm facade, I can only imagine what it does to people, when you go to scenes, and I can tell you what it's done to people. I mean, and the horror that it inflicts on families, neighbors, children losing friends at such a young age. I mean, it's terrible, and it takes a toll on everybody.
Yeah, absolutely, and I've seen that firsthand too. So let's talk about territory here. Like, where is each gang located? So, like, if we see like a shooting in North Toledo, who'd be responsible for that versus like other shootings? Like, kind of break down the map for me if you could.
Well, I can break down the map for you. Let me just preface it with this, is that just because a shooting happens in the North End doesn't necessarily mean a North End gang had something to do with it. You don't see people residing in the territories like they used to back in, like they say, early 90s to late 90s, where, let's say, I've already thrown it out there. So Smith Park. Smith Park is located at Dorr and Forest, and Forest and Fernwood. It's one of our generationally known gangs. What I would say with them is, like I said, they're at Forest and Fernwood. You'll see gang members proud to declare where they're from. But these are our traditional gangs. So like you have Smith Park there. In the North End that you just asked, you would have, say, the Stickney 33rd Blood gang members. So obviously the Stickney Avenue. You have the Moody Manor Bloods. So the Moody Manor that's located at Kent, 2200 Kent, that's one of our, generationally known gangs. Ex-Block Crips. They like to claim the territory, usually 3200 block of Glenwood, but you'll see them always hanging out at the gas station at Detroit and Central. I can go through that. If you want to go to, you have, like, say, the Woodstock Crips. We'll keep it with Crips. You have the Woodstock Crips over in the 1100 block of Woodstock. You have the Cherrywood Crips. The Greenbelt Apartment is where it's kind of where their generational location would be. 800 block of Ontario, 800 block of Walnut. Southside Gangster Disciples, you'll see them in the 1100 block of Belmont, 900 block of Vance. You had the Rec Squad, which claimed kind of the McClinton Nunn projects. But these were historical. Like I said, now we're running into hybrid gangs. So you might see, say, like the Gear Gang Crips, which would be Monroe and Auburn area. You'll see some of them hanging out with Smith Park people. hanging out with Southside Gangster Disciples. There'll be small groups of people, but they consider themselves row gang. Or you'll have Body Up, which is, again, these are these younger not necessarily generational groups, and they don't claim territory. They just claim a group.
Interesting. So, what's the recruiting process for these kinds of gangs? Like, what do they do to pull people in?
Well, historically, people would talk about that you would be getting jumped in. If you were a female, there was always the thing called getting sexed in. But today, you would hear people say, hey, they're shooting to get membership. It's not necessarily that. We have a local group, and it's, again, one of these hybrid gangs that call themselves Catch a Body. All you had to do was shoot somebody to get into it. But with some of these groups now, it's, hey, you're from the block. We know you to be cool. We're okay with that. Your brother, we know your brother. We grew up with him. He was cool. You're cool. I mean, it can be something as simple as that. We're not necessarily seeing you have to commit crimes or get jumped in. I mean, it can be just as simple as you showing loyalty to a certain group. Now, with these hybrid gangs, their loyalty changes day to day. So what we talk about today is going to be different tomorrow because something's going to happen by 9, 10 o'clock tonight. And that's just the kind of the upsetting thing with this new generation we're seeing is it's not Crip versus Blood and Blood versus Crip. It's these small hybrid groups shooting out with other people.
How do they even keep up with it?
I don't know how they keep up with it. We struggle to follow it because it changes day to day. Like I said, today we're cool, but you say a comment to my friend, and my friend has a problem and shoots you, now we have a problem with each other. It's something as simple as that we're seeing.
So does that make your police work really confusing sometimes?
Absolutely. And we do the best to bring it all together. We use various resources. I won't get into all the little tools that we use, but yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that we have very good detectives dedicated to this type of work, and it's not just the gang task force, but our detective bureau and officers on the street, I mean, everybody kind of collaborates as best we can, and then we try to make sense of a senseless act.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of break down for me what like your mission statement is being in the gang task force.
In the gang task force, really, it's where you gotta have to be a jack of all trades. Okay, so we want you to be out there and be proactive. We want to know who's out there on the street and who's hanging out with who. We do that with suspect stops, traffic stops. So we like well-rounded officers as far as, are you good with a traffic stop, suspect stops, talking to large groups of potentially violent people, are you okay interacting with those people? Secondly, are you able to execute search warrants? Because we try to be able to utilize every resource we can to attack this gang problem. And so we'll execute search warrants that come through various reasons, whether it be drug sales, we're just seeing shootings coming from there, known gang members getting acclimated to the area, hanging out. We'll try to disrupt that. So really the mission statement would be just to be a well-rounded but respectful officer at the same time. Because if you go out there heavy-handed, you know, you're not going to get very much information. So you have to be respectful, be able to talk with people, because the whole thing is for us is if there's a problem in your neighborhood, we like to help out.
So are there low-level crimes that you're going to kind of look the other way on to try to get to a bigger crime? Is that something that you might see?
It just depends on exactly what the problem is that we're attacking. I'll use small things to stop people for if I can get into, you know, into a kind of a bigger area, just to see what, you know, what some of these guys are doing. And they know what we're doing. We know what they're doing. Will I necessarily look past certain crimes? Absolutely, because if I know that there's a bigger and bigger thing to stop, that's what we want. Absolutely. But at the same token, you know, we don't take any card or tool off the table as far as how to deal with gangs. We have to be the type of people that think outside the box all the time.
So, I mean, it probably varies from gang to gang, but what is your relationship with them, and how do you interact with them? Like, when you're patrolling down the street or you're walking on the sidewalk, what is that dynamic like when they see you and you see them?
Depends on what's going on. Like, if we see them grouped up, I'll come in. For the most part, when it's the older gang members, there's no issues. Usually they just want us to leave. They want us to pull off. The younger ones usually are the ones that try to instigate fights or get mouthy, and the older ones generally try to stop them. That's what I see day in and day out, because really the older gang members want us to just leave the area. But if usually, as the term is if they're dirty, if they have drugs or guns, usually they're not staying around, and it's pretty telling what the person's doing. When they see us, they were fine, laughing, joking, see us, and all of a sudden now they're beating feet. Generally that perks up our attention. We're trained to see that, and generally we try to go and make a stop on that type of person. We'll leave everybody else, like you said, I guess, committing smaller crimes. We'll let them be because we have this person committing a smaller crime, but B, we're pretty sure he's committing something else.
So in your estimation, what do you think works best to reduce the appeal of gangs and to make people, and to eventually shrink gangs so that, it becomes less and less of a problem? What do you think works best there?
I think if I had that answer, I'd be a millionaire. I mean, that's a tough question. I think it's just trying to get the truth of what gang life is. Really, there's only three ends in a gang, as a gang member. Prison, you're gonna be coughing, or the third one of you getting out. That's where we would like you to be, but that's usually not the course. And the reality is I don't think people realize when you pull that trigger, you can't take it back. So when we're arresting these 14, 15, 16-year-olds doing shootings, they're like, well, I didn't mean to. And I don't think some of these youthful offenders know the consequences. It's not adding up yet. So if we can get an understanding with our youth, like, hey, you got to be able to do something else better with your life. I got no problem if you want to make money. That's what everybody's goal is, to succeed. But there's got to be a better way than shooting people. The resolve of, hey, we got a problem with each other, we'll go out and we'll go have a fist fight. Those days are over with. Social media, everybody wants to pull a gun. Everybody wants to record something. They don't want to look embarrassed on social media getting punched or beat up, so I'm going to shoot somebody. And they don't understand the consequences of it.
So a lot of these kids have regret after they pull the trigger. You've seen that.
I've seen it on a lot of them, Like, I didn't mean for that to happen, and it's sad because it's like, you're kind of throwing your life away. You ended somebody else. There's two families right there that, are hurting. And you just watch it, and it's time and again, and the youth just don't get that consequence yet.
So seeing all this violence, seeing all this culture, what does it do to you and your other members of the task force?
Sadly, we see it time and again, and it's not necessarily something that we want to see. We would love to be able to really almost be out of a job. That would be great. That's kind of where we would like to be as far as we took care of this problem. But we understand that we can't give up, no matter what. We've done great work. I've been proud of the unit. I think the department has, especially over the last few years with the homicides, what they've grown to. But I think that, we just try to do our job, and that's kind of, we have to kind of compartmentalize what we do. This is work, and then work is work. You leave it at work. And then when you go home, you enjoy time with your family.
So last year we saw the highest homicide rate ever in the city of Toledo. Did it feel like things were getting out of hand at any point, or did it feel like business as usual still?
No, we're used to the fact that there's going to be probably shots fired on any given day in the city of Toledo. And not necessarily all those shots are in anger. Some people, as much as people wouldn't believe, but will go out and just crank a couple rounds off just to play with their gun, or they're checking their guns. But would I say it's business as usual? No, because it's, when you have a couple homicides a day or over a week, that's stressing on everybody, because we're all trying to help each other out, trying to get to the bottom of who's shooting who.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. The mayor and the chief have been using these laser and phaser programs, these targeted neighborhood raids where they go in and they have these big arrests, and they take away illegal guns, and they take away illegal drugs, and if people are caught with things, they arrest them. Do you think those are effective? Do you think those do a good job of like kind of kneecapping gangs in a certain sense, where it's like, we're going to take away the tools that you have?
It has its place. That's what I'll say. So with these targeted areas, as far as I know, our criminal intelligence and our upper command, they kind of made a collaboration on what areas have historically in the city of Toledo over, say, a certain given time, maybe it's 5 years, I don't know what they used, but we had problems in area A. So we'll go with Laser. That was the LaGrange area. And then the next one was Phaser for the 5 points, the Toledo 5 points. So basically what I think is, looking at that, do I think it helped? Absolutely. We did have an uptick prior to our last operation, which was Essex. Eastside had an uptick in crime, especially around the Weiler homes. Management and even the community was reaching out to us. And the period for Essex, I could tell you I don't have the number stats, but calls for service, at least, for the time that I'm here, it went down drastically. So does it have its place? Absolutely. Do I think we have to stay and keep all means available to detect certain problems? Because it can't be just one faceted. That's kind of where I think the department is. So I agree, it's a tool, but it's not the one thing that we're always going to use to rely on to defeat a problem.
Should regular people, strong word, but should civilians, people not involved in the gangs, should they be worried about being caught in the crossfire, or being used as a tool to enter these gangs and just being shot at randomly? Is that something that people should really fear?
Well, the fact that I would say that, like we had talked about earlier, some of these youthful gang members don't care who or what they're shooting at, as long as they're shooting. Should it have an impact? I would say on the neighborhoods. Yeah, absolutely. If you feel that there's a gang problem in your neighborhoods, reach out to us, speak up, because what we see, at least as far as historically in the city of Toledo, and that we'll see on social media and that makes news, is groups of people gathering, turning into a fight, leading to shots fired. These fights evolved over 10, 15 minutes. And people, instead of contacting or reaching out to us, everybody wants to record. They want to get their social media profile likes up. But instead of calling, they're recording. The hope would be, hey, reach out to us. If you see these things, anybody, you could be that one phone call that saves somebody's life. Because, like I said, we're finding more and more youthful people carrying these guns. They show up to fights. And, yeah, we have a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, but we have innocent young people dying that shouldn't be dying.
Absolutely. That's about all I can think of for now, but I really appreciate you letting me pick your brain.
No, you're welcome. Not a problem.